Hey guys, so I'm going to be talking about exercise modalities here in this chapter. So the first one we're talking about is more about the resistance training modalities, which is usually the bigger one. And a little bit later we'll get to some of the stability items. So modalities, some kind of device or tool that is designed to enhance the exercise or movement to help you create that whatever outcome you need to be. There's a ton different modalities, and they include free weights, cables, machines, exercise balls, you name it. All that is considered a modality. You can change them out, you can customize them, you can get really creative with them to whatever you need to do. There's a lot of risk versus reward. Okay, safety is always a big one. Some modalities are safer than others, obviously. Cost is a big one because some things can range into the tens of thousands quite easily. And some stuff is free, like body weight. So, and there's also, we'll talk a little bit on some of the different kind of fitness apps and different things that are out there. All right, so the first one is the machines. Okay, strength training machines, wherever it is. It's usually some kind of fixed plane of motion for whatever it is, like say chest press. There's a lot of pull downs here in the picture. There's a lot of pros and cons to these. Pros, okay, less intimidating. Okay, usually can be emphasize certain muscle groups. Okay, really for rehab purposes is really big because let's say you only do one motion for say rehab wise. Let's say if you're trying to really emphasize the lower traps, that pull downs is a really great one to do. Okay. You can adjust various loads and intensities quite easily. Usually does not require a spotter. Usually the biggest issue in terms of intimidation or lack of experience. Provides extra support. Keeps the clients in a fixed plane of motion. Okay. Those are a lot of pros. Okay. Cons. You can't do full body motions usually. Okay. You're usually limited to one plane of motion. You can get creative with those and kind of branch out of that one plane. Does little provide challenging for the core. May not be ideal for improving athletic performance. Okay. Machines do not fit all body types usually. Expensive. Very expensive. Okay. I mean, talking about just the machine she's on right now, I mean, the cheapest one you'll find is probably $8,000. Easily. And even then, she's probably in a higher class one because they want the picture to look really nice. Okay. So a lot of gyms, the machine area is usually very expensive. Free weights. Okay, so this, whatever the weighted object is, dumbbell, barbell, whatever weights you can add or that's fixed to it. A lot of the benefits of some of these, like pros and cons. Pros can be used to emphasize certain muscle groups and target multiple muscle groups quite easily. Really important for athletic performance if that is the goal. Can be very challenging on core stability. Improve dynamic joint stability and proprioception. Allow an individual to move in multiple planes of motion. Okay, cons. Usually requires a spotter. Not all the time, but especially some of the more full body motions usually requires a spotter. May be difficult for beginners. Can be very intimidating for people that are not used to exercise at all. Requires that multiple dumbbells or barbells be changed. Okay, so you may need multiple to adjust the load. Okay, so for some different ones, like let's say some of the dumbbells, you can adjust the different weights on them. Depending on the rack, they're a little bit pricier for those, but those are possible, saves you a lot of space. Potentially more dangerous. Okay, when you're throwing around weight, dropping them, injuries happen, poor spotting, poor technique, whatever it is, can usually result in a lot of injury. And then I talked about intimidation. Cables. Okay, cables are really good thing to have. So cable machines similar to Freedom motions. You can vary the resistance, benefits, postural stability, strength, muscle size, power. You can have single multi-joint motions, moderate to advanced. You can even do some beginner as well. Not too bad. Pros and cons. Okay, one big con is the cost. You can get pretty cheap, and instead of having this nice big machine you see in the picture here, you can get just a simple cable system that you just attach free weights to. Usually not like a dumbbell, but usually like the plated weights. I use one of those, and I think I got the extension on that too, which is roughly spent about $300 on that. But that's better than the $5,000 machine here, however much it costs. But I can do a number of different motions with it and still keeping the cost down. Resistance bands, okay, or whatever bands you want to use, are great. They're more like the bands, almost like a rubber band, which is like the flat and thin. And then there's more like the tubing, which is the round. Okay, so these are really good. It's used for anything, beginner to advanced. And one thing that's different from the bands to the common weights or free weights is that the more tension on the band, let's say during the full range of motion at the very end, there's usually more resistance because there's more tension on the band, which is different from the free weights. As soon as you get beyond that 90 degrees, that sticking point is usually pretty easy. Okay. You can do a lot of the full range of motion activities pretty good. Single multi-joint movements. You get some full body motions in here. Bands can break, just know that. So they usually should be replaced pretty often. Usually about every year, you should replace them. Some get really thick. You can use them to assist in a lot of different motions. Let's say if you're doing pull-ups, okay, and you're still getting used to it. You can throw a thicker band. They have ones that are like 1 and 2 inches thick, and they're pretty thick in itself, and they're like yay wide. You can throw that around the bar and wrap it around your knee or foot to help you just kind of take off however 20, 30 pounds of weight to help you with the pull-ups, for example, or whatever motion you like to do. I think in one of the modules previously, I think for core, we talked about the Pallof press, which is we use a band. Really, really great core stability exercise. One of my favorite ones. You can do the squat. This is one here. Usually not my favorite band with a squat because I usually like to just add weight onto that. But you can do that. Bands also have to keep in mind that you do have to also usually purchase handles. Okay, some come with it, like the picture here, but a lot of times, if you're especially in a rehab setting or a gym setting, you'll just buy 100, 150, 200 feet of band, and you'll cut it as needed. You could buy the handle separately. They're usually not too expensive, usually about $5 for a set, give or take, and you attach it on there. But sometimes you do have to replace everything out pretty often. And usually if the band you see any kind of wearing, it's just time to replace it. Because it could rip pretty easy and whip someone, and you don't want that because that's going to hurt, and potential lawsuit. TRX rip trainer. I have personally not seen this, but I have done a similar motion with this with a kind of modified cables. A TRX just kind of made it more mainstream. It's a resistance band trainer with a lever bar attached to it. On one side, sometimes you can attach it to two sides. You can do a lot of multi-plane motions in a really good, greater full range of motion. I do it a lot for core stuff. For example, she's standing doing some kind of motion here. You could do wood choppers, okay, standing and kneeling. Really good rotation. You get really good for anti-rotation activities. A little bit more fun, a little bit more challenging in itself. The upside is if you do the TRX one, I don't know how much they cost, but I assume it's like a decent amount for it. You have to have a stable place to mount it. TRX usually likes it mounted to a wall or loop it around something that's very, very stable. I wouldn't mount it to a door or anything like that. And then one thing, you have to have like good footwear and good place to do it on. Concrete is good. Grass and dirt, no, because it usually requires a good amount of stability with the ground or traction, so you can have that good amount of stability. Not too bad. I don't use it like a ton, but it's a really good core exercise in itself. Next is medicine balls. Okay, so usually some kind of weighted ball that you can throw around. They can get pretty light to pretty heavy, and they come in a variety of different sizes. So I can allow the client to move usually multi-planes of motion with pretty good range of motion. Can allow for single multi-joint movements, power movements, sport-specific movements. You can help very different things, like we have the ball under one hand for the push-ups. You can also help. That's more of a kind of transition to a one-handed push-up. Put some more stress in one arm versus the other. You can alternate. And then there's the medicine ball push. On the next picture, you need the overhead one. A variety of different things. Some balls are made to slam, and others are not. Just know that. The picture on the right, that one's a little bit more of a slam ball. Just from the balls I purchased in the past, to where you can slam it on the ground and not damage it. And the picture on the left, even though they look very, very similar, may not be. To where it's usually one that you can throw around, but not usually slam into hard surfaces. So if you're looking out for a ball, just know that. Because if you're slamming a ball it's not supposed to, the ball will usually damage pretty quickly and pop, and then you're down whatever, $30-$40 per ball, however much that is. The weight varies a lot. I've seen 1 pound up to 20 to 30 pound balls. And they can range from the size of that ball, which is about yay big, to a pretty large one. For whatever motion you're trying to do. So just know that the size matters depending on what you're trying to do as well. Some are made of more rubber, and some are more made of the, what is it? It's more like a volleyball. I don't want to say vinyl. Volleyball material. A little more cloth-like, I guess. So now that's a different thing as well. Kettlebell training. Kettlebell, what's crazy is kettlebell was super popular, I don't know, 80 years ago, however long, and then it's come back again. So kettlebell, usually it's some kind of flat-bottomed cast iron ball, varying weights. And so you usually use it as usually with the handle on it, use it to usually do some kind of swing motion. Okay. Also do a lot of stabilization, because of the handle's usually 3 or 4 inches away from the mass of it. So some of the swing motions, you could put it up over your shoulder. Use it very similar to a lot of dumbbells in a way, but a little bit more options available to them. Grip is usually a big demand on these, because the grip usually varies in size on some of them, as well as the weight. Usually pretty hard to damage. I wouldn't try and drop them, given that, but they usually last a really long time. We've had some here at Fresno City College that that's kind of worn down, and then we just paint them again, and then they look brand new. Pros and cons is one, you got to go over safety with them. Good amount of stability with some of these. We'll talk a little bit about some of the different postures right here. Okay, so some of the kinetic chain checkpoints for kettlebell training. Okay, so your feet about shoulder width apart. Okay, given whatever you're trying to do. Okay, feet straight ahead. Knees in line with your toes, usually over your second and third toe. Okay, to make sure you have proper alignment given your body. You always want to wear shoes. Okay, because of different dynamic motions that you're doing, you don't want to accidentally slip and fall. So usually shoes is a given. Hips level in a neutral position with your back. Shoulders usually depressed starting out, depending on what you're trying to do, and stable. So usually you have a light pinch back to make sure they're nice and stable and down. And head's always in line, or sorry, your cervical spine's always in line with your thoracic and the rest of your back. Okay? It's always your starting point. Okay? And then do whatever motion it is. There's a number of different kettlebell trainings. For example, they talk about if you include the model. So the first phase is the row. Okay, so you get like a push up to a row or just a row. Okay, single hand row. And then you start phase 2 for doing supersets. Okay, so here's a cable row, and then followed by the renegade row. Okay, there's your single body part doing the same motion. Okay, you're in phase 5. For more supersets, so you have a squat to overhead press, okay, you dumbbell, and then you can do the kettlebell single hand snatch. Okay, similar thing in a lot of ways. So just a number of different things that you can incorporate in there. And the book has more, or you can look up a ton of more exercises up there. Even the NASM's YouTube page has, I don't know, 80, 90 different exercises that they demonstrate for you. All right, bodyweight training. So some of you guys have done this already in some of the module assignments. Okay, so bodyweight exercise, individual's own body weight, which is pretty much just gravity plus their weight for whatever motion it is, and you can decrease and add depending on whatever exercise and the intensity you need. Most are closed chain exercises. You can do single or multiple joint exercises. Okay. Common ones are like push-ups, pull-ups, squats, sit-ups, so forth. No equipment needed, which is really good, especially if you're starting out. It's free. You just really just need motivation for it, for the most part. And you can get really advanced in some of the bodyweight stuff, like jumping lunges is a really advanced, like lower body workout. It's really power-based and does require a single thing. Just for like safety reasons, make sure of whatever exercise you're doing, bodyweight-wise, it's safe. Whatever surfaces, like let's say you're doing the, I'm drawing a blank right now. The jumping lunges, I would do them on grass or dirt rather than concrete or asphalt, just because you come down pretty quick and you get tired, you come down too far, and you're going to knock your knee on the ground. It's like it hurt really bad. Also make sure you don't slip or fall. If you're using like a wall or something to do push-ups, make sure it's stable and not going to fall over. So a number of different things. Okay, just kind of keep safety in mind for the most part. And yeah, I named a bunch of other examples already. And most of you guys have done them already. So there's a number of different things. All right, suspended bodyweight training. Okay, so there's things you can buy that help you with this, or you just need a bar. Okay. Most schools will have you just walk around the campus like over the weekend or after hours and use like their pull-up bars or whatever it is. Excuse me. You can also use ropes, the webbing, a lattice to help you kind of suspend whatever works for you. If you're using the pull-up bar in a doorway for whatever it is, just make sure that the trim can support your pull-up bar. Just know that. Like let's say you look at the picture up here. Okay, the trim up there is just held on by a few nails. Okay, for decoration. So just know that that trim is not very stable. Okay, and it's only supposed to support maybe about 5 pounds of weight. Okay, some of the bars that attach to some of the door frames take that into account, so it more kind of grabs the wall. But I wouldn't just do just use my grip strength and grab onto that and do pull-ups or whatever, suspend my body weight. So just keep that in mind. Okay, that's usually one of those like Facebook exercise fails things. Okay, usually with suspending your body weight, grip strength is a really big indicator. If you're doing like hanging like knee ups or whatever it is, a lot of people say use straps on your hands to help grip the bar. That's always a thing. Or you can do the wraps that go under your elbows to support that, whatever you want to do. A number of different things. But it's always good to always kind of improve your grip strength as well. Try it out. So whatever you're using, make sure it's anchored firmly. Usually the exercise is single or multiplanar. Okay, whatever it is. One nice thing about suspending your body weight is it's really good on your spine because it kind of decreases that compression factor. Okay, there's almost always a core activation sequence to this. There can be balance, um, a good amount of flexibility and joint mobility stuff. Um, I've personally, I would use this for a lot of core activity, or for someone if they have like a mild back injury and they're allowed to do activities. Okay, suspend them from the door, from like a door, whatever it is, or a bar, and just kind of dangle for a little bit. Sometimes that can just help relieve some pain. All right, so I forgot to mention the TRX. Okay, suspended body weight. TRX is a really good. I mean, you can make your own personally, with a rope and some good handles and a good anchor. Um, you do a number of different things with the TRX, and almost all of them is all stability based. Very, very difficult, no matter what stage you're at. So I mean, they only have phase 1 and 2 here, but you can go up to phase probably 4 quite easily with some of these, because this is all stability work. I would kind of going back a little bit to some of this stuff over here on pros and cons. Some of the beginner stuff, like the suspended push-up, maybe it's kind of difficult for a phase 1 individual. Okay, that might even be like a phase 2 or 3 for the suspended push-up, because that's very hard, especially to go that deep into a push-up. Then it requires a good amount of shoulder stability to maintain that. And not saying that someone in phase 1 can't do it, but just kind of keep that in mind, because it's all stability work. Okay, and then there's pull-ups and rows and whatever it is. They get a good amount of core work. Okay, and then phase 2 they have here with the bench press and then with the TRX push-up. Okay, if you want to incorporate that into any of your designs. Sandbags is another thing. Personally, I've not done any kind of sandbag work, just because I don't want to pay for them. It does seem kind of cool. They use this a lot for HIIT activities. I do know that. I don't know the price on them personally, but there's a number of different handles on the sandbags, and you can toss them and throw them over your head. A number of different things. Is a good amount of stability work, especially for that kind of anti-rotation exercises. Depending on the individual, this is probably not like a phase 1 stuff. This is more maybe like 2 through 4 for the most part. But still a good amount of stability work that is involved with this. I would say that you have to at least complete a good amount of core work before you actually get to some of this. As well, if you're getting over the head, make sure that they can safely control that weight over their head and not like dislocate the shoulder, like if they have their arm up like this. Pros and cons. Some you can adjust the weights inside of them just by adding or taking away more sandbags. Others are fixed, so keep that in mind. I don't know how long they last for, depending on whatever you're throwing it on. I would probably suggest not throwing it on like concrete or asphalt, just so you don't like rough up the bag too much, but more like the indoor mats, or like a rubber surface. Is probably help those sandbags last a lot longer. Viper, okay, another one that I have not seen too often. It's an acronym for Vitality, Performance, and Reconditioning. So it's a kind of some tube that has handles in there, and it's just like a barbell, if you will, with different grips. And so you do a number of single and full body activities with it. They can get up there in price. A lot of people will make their own. They'll take a big bar and weld out some holes and add some handles and so forth. They can get pretty big in size. Probably wouldn't be my first choice to go to, just because you can't adjust the weights on these. You can't like add weights. Really, you have to just get a different weighted Viper or bar, whatever it is. I don't know the cost of them either, but I would assume it would range a good amount. Same with the weights. But still, stability-wise, it's pretty good. It kind of puts you in a kind of like neutral position for your grip, so you can probably grip that a lot better than most. I would assume they use this for a lot more hit activities. Battle ropes, I love battle ropes. They're pretty easy to do. You set your own intensity. Really good high intensity workouts or upper body conditioning. Along with like back stability, for example, you can change it up however you want to do. I do some hit stuff with battle ropes. It's also really good on grip strength as well. And they vary in length. I think I have a 50 footer. That's 50 pounds, which is actually pretty big. Actually, going back, I wouldn't get one as big because, I mean, that's me gripping it with one hand, which someone with a smaller hand, it's going to be like this for them trying to grab it. And so that's one kind of downfall of them. But it's really good core activation, good balance stuff. Like you can do a single leg. That's, again, good balance. You can work different muscle groups. Like sometimes I'll do like up and down, single arm, like individual here. I'll do out to in, which is a good shoulder workout in itself. Really kind of gets my shoulder blades kind of going and rotator cuff muscles. You can change it up. It's just really good upper body cardio, which a lot of people don't really get in. You can do it with a hose if you want to, especially if you're just starting out. It's not a bad idea. You just put a hose around a tree, grab both ends, and just shake it. Okay, long story. You go up and down, and you could really change the intensity pretty easy depending on the person. You can start off really small to really big motions. So whatever you're trying to do. All right, now a little bit on the proprioceptive modalities. Okay, stability ball. It's always a really, really common one. Okay, they also call it the Swiss ball. Really, really common in a lot of different facilities, physical therapy, sports medicine, athletic training, physicians, chiropractic, whatever it is, gyms. Can help kind of core activation, can help with different asymmetrical workouts. The price can vary quite a bit depending on what you're trying to, the ball. You can get like cheap ones for like 30, 25, 30 bucks. And the more expensive ones are more like 80 bucks. And depends on like pretty much the activity that you're doing on them. They do have to be replaced usually yearly. So they don't need to last like a really long period of time. They can puncture, okay, quite easily. So you got to keep that in mind. These are some of the recommended ball sizes, okay, depending on like your height. They also go by color. I think it's like yellow, red, green, and like a purplish or black. Usually how it goes. Usually the red and green are the most common ones just because that fits more body types. You don't have to stick with one versus the other, kind of whatever you're most comfortable with. So a lot of different activities you can do, like ball crunches, ball squats against the wall are really, really common one, especially for having a person that's not really used to squatting. That kind of sitting back against the ball takes a lot of pressure off your knees, and then they can adjust how deep they want to go, up and down. Okay. When you're using a stability ball, okay, make sure you inspect it so that there's no like tears or damage or worn spots, whatever it is. If you find any, it's just time to throw it away. Okay. I saw someone, they were doing seated military press, and the ball popped and she fractured her tailbone. Okay. Just out of the blue. But it was like a decently worn ball, so I'm going to keep that in mind. And she was not like an overweight person. She was a cross-country athlete. It was probably max 90 pounds. Okay, so it does happen. Okay, make sure it's inflated fully. It says should feel firm. So when you buy them, it will do what will happen is it'll come with this kind of soft measuring tape that you put around it, and you'll inflate it until the measuring tape comes out a certain tension. Well, not tension, but it comes out to like, oh, this is like 80 inches all the way around it, whatever it is. So that's usually on the firmness of it. I mean, you can go by just like, oh, this is firm. But some places will want it like a certain firmness versus others. Okay. Some are burst resistant. Some have more of a dynamic weight capacity versus static capacity. I wouldn't go beyond those capacities or pretty close to them. And they are made of different materials. Most are rubber. I saw one when I was working at a local high school that was made out of kangaroo skin. Okay. And it had a crazy high dynamic and stability capacity. I think the static capacity was like 1,500 pounds, which is crazy. And the dynamic was like 700 for that. And the ball lasted about 5 years before having to be replaced. Really crazy thing. It was about 80 to $100 per ball. But I mean, you got to think if you're spending so much money per year on exercise balls or Swiss balls, it might, in the long run, be good for you. Just to get a high capacity one. Okay. I had one up until 2 days ago when my dog decided he wanted to pop it. So again, they don't last very long. So make sure whatever they're on, make sure that there's no like keys in their pockets or anything pokey that could pop it. Make sure you have a really open space, because if the person tends to fall over, they could roll mid-fall and land where they're not supposed to. And if they land into like a dumbbell or a barbell or whatever, it's going to hurt really bad. Okay. Keep away from a heat source. Prolonged exposure to the sun is not a good thing for them. Okay. Or high temperatures. Again, jewelry, like rings, for example. Have them wear soft ringers, take the rings off. Do not do any standing exercise on the ball. Don't do it. That's just dumb. You're asking to go to the ER. All the time you can have a spotter, someone hold the ball when you're doing whatever activity. For example, I worked therapy for a little bit, and we do a lot of ball squats against a wall. And I might need to have to hold the ball a little bit, that way it doesn't slip out from them, or the person doesn't, because they didn't have that kind of stability and balance. They didn't have the ability to kind of go up and down. They would kind of come to the side, and so I might hold the ball a little bit and help just guide them. That way they don't like slip off to the side. But the Swiss balls are really, really good to have. I think they're really beneficial to have. They could do a number of different things. For example, you could do the bench press, dumbbell bench. Okay, you can do single arm, one arm, only one arm, like not having a weight in your other hand. So that changes things up quite a bit. It's a good amount of core stability. Number of different things you can do on it. As well as if you want to do some kind of spinal decompression, you just have the ball on the ground and you just put your hips pretty much over the top part of the ball and you just relax. And that kind of gravity just kind of pulls you over the ball, and it can help decompress your spine. It's another really good thing to do with the balls. Yep. Next one is Bosu ball. I really like Bosu balls. It's just like a half ball, if you will. The black end that you see down here, this is a pretty thick rubber, and the blue part on top is some kind of like plastic filled, but still pretty burst resistant. You do a number of different things with both shoe balls. You do like the squats that they see here, or push-ups. Really good for core activation, a lot of balance, a lot of stabilization. The cost, they usually get around 100, 150. They're moved pretty easy. It's not very heavy. I'll do squats on this side, and I'll do squats on the other side. as well. On the side, I'll do like single leg squats or double leg, depending on their level of activity and balance that you need. I usually won't let them up on any weights when I do this. You can have them do lunges. Okay, the ball's sitting with the blue side up, and you have them lunge into the ball. That's another good one. Whatever it is. Okay, balance, single leg balance, really good activity to do. I think the cost is worth it personally to do a number of different things for a number of different individuals. I've never had to replace one. It lasts a good amount of time. And it inflates just like the Swiss ball. And it holds the air pretty well. I've actually never had to re-add air in. And I've had some 5 years easy. So I mean, $150 for me, it was worth it. And I would use them especially when I was in the clinic practicing every day. Usually for a lot of balance, like ankle balance. There's other small ones like a Dynadisc that it's there's no hard surface on it. It's probably much like maybe a quarter of the size of this. So it's probably about like yay big, and it gets about that thick. You just add air to it, just like the Swiss ball, whatever it is, depending on the intensity that you want. You can do a number of different exercises as well. Pretty much for stability wise. Yep. Next one is the TerraCore. Okay, so it's some kind of inflatable rubber bladder and a hard surface backing, kind of very similar to the Bosu ball. Okay, a little bit wider. They're used a lot for like boot camps and small groups. A lot of core activation. Personally, I've not used any of this. I give you some resistance exercises. Okay, for example, she's laying here doing bench press, bi push-ups, dumbbell bench press. I don't know the cost on these personally. I wouldn't buy any of them, honestly. I would probably go and get the Bosu ball because this is the same thing as she's doing here. But her stability is more front and back, where here it's all different ranges of motion. Okay. Personally, I would do the Bosu over the TerraCore. But there's probably a number of more things that you can do on this than I can think of. So if you've done any of the group classes, you've probably done a number of different things on this. I don't want to bash on it too much just because I haven't used it, so just know that. That's TerraCore. All right, fitness trackers. And then other modalities, there's a ton of different things that you can use that we didn't like cover in here. This is just a few. Other things that I would use, I use a lot of bands, the Bosu, body weight. I didn't use any machines personally, just I'm beyond that stage. I use cables a good amount because you can do a number of different things on that. But most of it you can do a lot of similar things on different modalities. You just gotta get creative. Okay. Or alternate the resistance is all it is. For example, if I'm doing a bent over row, I can do it on a cable. I can do it with a barbell. Excuse me. And then the barbell, the upside of it is I can get more core activation and back support when I do it. The weights are probably a little bit easier to adjust. I do the same thing with resistance bands. And then the resistance bands is probably a good thing for like a person starting out or in some kind of rehab still, or doesn't have that much strength because they're just pulling back. Okay, on a band that's maybe 5 pounds of pressure, which that could be the starting point for them, just to engage their core and their upper and mid back. Okay, so that'd be a good thing for just teaching activation, and then as they can activate it a lot easier. You incorporate it more. So whatever modality that you're trying to decide of, just do it appropriately. Okay, start a little bit easier, and then slowly increase it and see how they work out. All right, some trackers. All right, so almost everyone has some kind of tracker nowadays. They usually are on your phone. Okay, it usually comes with a free one. You could buy other ones. We're usually wearable. A watch. My watch broke a few days ago. I had the Fitbit. I probably got to do away with the Fitbit just because I'm tired of buying Fitbits. They usually last about 2 years on the dot for me, and then they break or stop working or just don't charge anymore. Uh, but there's a number of different things like this step counter, distance is a common one, calorie counter, movement reminders, moves. Like let's say mine was like take I think it was like 250 steps every hour, and then just like 10 minutes before the hour is up, it would just send me a reminder. Um, you have GPS, heart rate, sleep tracking. That was kind of cool to see my sleep trackings, and also that kind of went hand in hand. It was usually my stress levels. Um, so that was like kind of cool with the Fitbit. Some are waterproof, some are water resistant. Just know the difference. Some is resistant to water, so like you can shower and probably go swimming in them, but they're not waterproof, which is, oh, it can go to a certain depth and not be damaged. And it could recognize different activities. Like if I was going on a jog with my dogs, my Fitbit would auto detect that I was working out and just start automatically. Or you could set it up, oh, I'm going to start weightlifting or cycling, whatever it is, whatever that you want to do. And they usually go iOS or Android. They usually fits either one. One cool thing that I used for a number of time was competitions with Fitbits. So like all the friends I had like on the app, we would have daily and weekly competitions. You can get the most steps, and some of them get pretty challenging to where on the daily and weekly steps, you would shut off your sync to your phone, and then like my brother at 10, 11 o'clock at night would go run like 3-4 miles and then sync it right before the midnight, and then he'd just move up on the tracker. And we get some really, really heated competitions for that kind of stuff. Someone we might have thought that she'd attach it to her dog and threw the ball for hours on end. But a number of different things that all these different apps can help track. Okay. Cool. I'll have a wearable. Everyone's phone usually comes with some version of it for free. And you can always upgrade it and get like the whatever package you want that has more gizmos on it. Some of the wearable devices is really nice to have, especially the watches. There's also different trackers that goes on your belt loop or whatnot. And they vary in price, function, whatever it is. There's even rings. I had to look up the ring, and it's just a wearable ring that helps track pretty much your heart rate and like mood levels and all this stuff. Because I thought that was kind of weird ring. Some also include other like fitness and nutrition apps for you. Helps with like meal planning, calorie counts, food labels, tracking macro and micronutrients, workouts, whatever it is. Some of those are free. Some are more, you got to pay for some of them. Number of different things. It happens to track everything each day. Some you can access more on the computer versus others. There's other apps out there, like let's say you do more cardio. There's like Map My Run, Map My Ride, Map My Walk, whatever it is. You can put in, either it'll sync to that app on your computer, or you can enter it in manually, and you can like see your distance and so forth. What's also nice about some of the apps, like on your phone or watch, whatever it is it'll tell you like how was your activity during the week or during the day. Like I had my step count to 15,000 steps a day, and that was usually my goal. And pre-COVID, that was usually pretty easy for me, and that was without activity. During COVID or post-COVID, whatever stage we're in now, I usually average about 8 to 10, give or take. So it usually helps me kind of track, like, oh, I need to go do like more like jogging or walking, whatever it is. So it will give you a little bit of feedback. That's always usually pretty helpful to know how much you've done during the day. Or if I'm sitting on my computer all day, just doing schoolwork, and it is 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I've only gotten 2,000 steps, I'm usually pretty grumpy. So helps you kind of gauge everything. Heart rate monitors, a number of different things that you can help wear. We talked a little bit about like heart rate assessments in previous chapters, so I can help you out. I've used some for a number of different activities and more medical wise stuff. Some more research and higher end athletes usually are really, really key tracking their heart rate during, post, pre activity wise. And some will wear like the chest straps, which is really, really accurate, which along with a wristband. Okay, so you have like both things going on. The watch is the common one, and they're decently accurate. They're not too far off. The rings is kind of weird. They're usually not more activity-based rings. Some get kind of like big and wide on the finger. That's more like at night or kind of during the day. But the one I saw, I just Googled heart rate monitor rings, and they're usually like $300. And it was more of a, I have too much money and I want to spend it on something worthless kind of a thing, personally. But that's just what I've saw so far. But I wouldn't spend too much on a heart rate besides your resting heart rate, for the most part. But some, let's say you go to Fresno State and exercise sciences, they're really big on some of the big heart rate stuff for research purposes, assessing your ideal max heart rate like really, really accurately and so forth. So that is exercise modalities. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.